I will make you better. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Redwolf 4765, Midnight Gym Lord, and Sean. And another thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Redwolf 4765. And another thank you to our $10 patron, Robbie Uchiha. And a very big thank you to our $20 patron, Alex Ice Rose. And a very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. Now, we have this breakdown, / discussion and analysis on how I shall optimize Meliodas for combat. Please remember to leave your own thoughts on how you'd optimize Meliodas for combat in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also hit that little notification bell to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. It's for as low as $1 a month, getting exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? Up here, and here we are to talk about how I would optimize Meliodas, the Wrath, and the leader of the 7 deadly sins for combat, and mainly like versus battle purposes, because something like that, a little something like that. I tend to dabble, I tend to dibble my feet. I tend to trickle my toes into a versus battle here or two, and I've realized something. Like, notably, whenever I write versus battles, I bring up abilities that like Meliodas has never used. Like, I gotta reference them, because usually I try to use versus battles as, like, full, comprehensive info checks on the characters. That's typically what I do. That's why you'll always see me repeat, like, things I may have said in previous versus battles. I'll always mention it, because, 1, I assume not everyone watches every single versus battle, and 2, I like to bring it up, alright? Like, the character has a complete kit, I like to reference their full kit whenever I do a versus battle on them. However, like, Mel doesn't use them in character. And then I was like, oh, okay, so you know what, maybe a hypothetical idea would be to, like, build them bloodlusted. Like, hypothetically, how a character, act in a scenario where they're, like, ripping, roaring, tearing, ready to tear their opponent apart. But I've also realized, especially after studying the couple characters who I do want to do an optimization for within this series, like, they don't do the smart thing there either, even when they are bloodlusted. So, like, in fact, sometimes them being bloodlusted makes them act stupider than they do if they were in character. So I realized, building them bloodlusted isn't actually that good of an idea either, because we've seen Meliodas bloodlusted, and he's not that smart. So with that being the case, I think the best way is to just optimize a character. We typically joke, and I know I typically joke a lot, I forget who said it first, but I now always say, like, if you want to act a character, or have a character act optimally, you shove a controller up there. But yeah, we're going to be shoving a controller up Meliodas' butt today, and trying to figure out what's the most optimal, best way we can have him fight for any versus battle ever, so he automatically GG's whoever he's fighting, just for the memes, and for the Doritos. AKA, I just really want, like, an optimal version of Meliodas. So, let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into how the series is going to work. So, first things first, I shall be covering a problem, and then how to fix that problem. So let's cover the first problem, which is Meliodas' mentality. So Meliodas, he's a real cool kid, right? He's a real nice dude. He's a real cool cat, if you will. But the big issue with Meliodas is that, how do I put this? Half his abilities are lethal. If not 3, I'd say darn near all of his abilities are lethal. Almost all of them. And due to that, he never uses them to his full potential. Never, no matter what, he never uses his abilities to his full potential because he's too nice of a dude. All right. Elizabeth got to him, turned the most fiercest, deadliest, and most feared member of the Demon Clan into a soft boy. And we've been living with the consequences of that ever since. Just his mentality alone, by 4 nights, by pre-4 nights, by anything post-meeting Elizabeth, he's so soft, he's so fragile, he's so weak, aka he just doesn't use his abilities the way he should. Like, think about all the lethal abilities Meliodas has as just a Demon Clan member alone. Like, not even getting anywhere fancy or anything, like going into his unique ability. No, the things he can do as a Demon Clan member, and he just doesn't do it because, he's a real cool cat. He's a real nice dude, and that's great. That's fantastic for his character writing, and it's fantastic for his development. But in a versus battle sense, if you have a character that has a really good sort of Dura-negation ability that they just never use because it's not in character for them to, that's just a whole wasted ability slot. That's like building a character for something that you're never going to use. Like, yeah, Mel has abilities that he could easily use to wipe out people very, very quickly. He never does, though, even when these are, like, temporary wipeouts, too. There are ways that Mel can use his lethal abilities without, like, actually executing people, but he never does. And notably, this is not just a thing for, like, regular Mel. This is a case across all Mel. Obviously, the Mel we see for a majority of the series is just a real nice guy who doesn't like to execute people too often, so he just simply doesn't do it. Heck, Prime Mel, so we get to see the Prime Mel, the one that's playful, fun-loving, and was fighting Escanor in, the perfect cube. Guess what? He's also pretty darn dumb too. He doesn't use any of his special execution abilities. He just punches, slashes, and kicks. Like, that's all bro does. Like, you can do more than that. Heck, even the Mel that was like ripped of all emotion, pure, nothing but endless malice, that had the archangels shaking in their boots, even he wasn't optimal. Mael escaped. Like, we have no context for how the rest of that battle went. All we know is that Meliodas repelled an Archangel. He should have annihilated an Archangel. Like, we gotta realize that's the interaction that caused the Archangels to fear Mel for the most part, but he didn't actually do anything. Mel doesn't even leave Mael with a battle scar or nothing. No, Mael just ran. And he was allowed to escape. If Mel was acting optimally on that I want to execute you type beat, that wouldn't have happened. That's the fattest, heftiest issue with Mel, first and foremost, because that locks off everything else. Like, if you do not have the right kind of mentality, it's going to lock off a lot of your abilities, and we see that with Mel. He doesn't use half his abilities, and I want to remind you, this mentality thing is so bad that we've never actually seen we've seen versions of Meliodas go all out. Presumably, now that I think about it, not even for the most part, but we've seen many variations of Mel, but the strongest variation of Mel, which in my opinion, it's not even King Meliodas, because that's kind of still up in the air for me, True Magic Mel, we never actually got to see that fight anything. You want to know why? Because his mentality never let him do it. The moment he unlocked the form, he took the Demon King's arm, ran, destroyed the curses, and then didn't use it against the Demon King when he showed up again. Obviously for good reason. He was trying to save his little brother. But still, we never actually get to see the current, as far as we know. I can definitely see arguments for King Mel being stronger because, Chaos Arthur fears him. All that. I can definitely see the arguments. But at least for as far as we know, either of them have never gone all out against people that they reasonably should have gone all out against. I get he wanted to spare Zell and didn't want to execute him, but it would have been a lot easier to beat the Prime Demon King down if he was using True Magic. I get he wants to save Arthur, not execute Arthur, but it would have been a lot easier to save and or execute Arthur if he went hypothetically into assault mode. If he just whipped that out, slapped it on Arthur's forehead. I think that would have been way easier, but no, Mel's running up on him in base. He's fighting the Demon King, and the highest we see him go is into assault mode against the Demon King, and that's only after he basically has the dub confirmed. And like the Demon King's about to leave Zodos's body. That's the only time we get to see it. We never get to see him actually go all out in assault mode when he has True Magic either. He's still suppressing himself. There's always suppression because of Mel's mentality. So how do we fix this problem? How do we optimize Meliodas for combat? Easy. Just remove the limiter. Because there are various limiters across all variations of Meliodas. Sometimes it's overconfidence. Sometimes it's kindness. Sometimes it's a little something in between. Usually it's the third one. So just remove that. Make him willing to execute people and want to win quickly, efficiently. Just do that. Simply shift his mentality just a slight little bit. Give him that right proper mental that's going to be like, okay, fine. Give him the full stakes of the Demon King Zell fight where like the world is going to be destroyed, except like crank it up to the world's going to be destroyed in like the next minute. Like, he really needs to take it serious. He needs to do everything in his power to defeat his opponent. Give him that kind of mentality, and notably, ironically enough, I mean, not necessarily, because Bond has his own issues with his mentality, and just the way Nakba writes him sometimes. But do him like Bond. Bond usually wants to execute people relatively quickly. His main attacks involve ripping out vital organs, and he kind of just do that, for real. Give Mel that kind of mentality, where he's like, fine, I gotta get this done, I got dinner waiting for me at home, and I got my son to take care of. I need to execute you right this instant. Right this moment, right now, right here, right now. I need that kind of mentality from him. Because if we get that kind of mentality on him, if we really get him working like that, then he's optimized. Because that removes the limiter. He's going to use everything in his arsenal. And that's what the rest of this video is based on. You fix that mentality. You take that soft boy nature away from him. You strip it away just a little bit. I get it. But Pencil, the character development, I understand. But we're in Versus Battle Land right now. We don't care about the character development. We care about what the character can do. And I want the whole kit to be available. Every last bit of the kit. Every last bit of it. I don't want no soul stealing being left out. I don't want True Magic being left out. I don't want clone being left out. I want everything on the table. And the best way to do that, the easiest way to do that, is to get Mel on that Mamba mentality. He needs to be gunning for the win, no matter what it takes. At every single, literally just make him a generic demon. Demons don't play no games. We saw the Grey Demon. It pulled up to that human village and used Dark Snow immediately. What did that red demon do? Strode up in the village and immediately started going Aguriba and drawing out souls. We need Mel on that kind of mentality. So that's problem number one. Fix the mentality, make him a bit more ruthless and efficient. Bada bing, bada boom. Get rid of the overconfidence, get rid of the kindness, and just have essentially a slaughter machine. I know that sounds bad and that reduces the character down a lot, but once again, we're optimizing strictly for battle here. Strictly for battle. So let's move on to the next big issue. If you couldn't tell, I am quite a little teeny tiny bit nettled that we never get to see True Magic actually fight anything. Like think about it. When do we ever actually get to see True Magic throw hands with anybody? Anybody, like actual throw hands, not the curses. The curses didn't have hands. And neither did the Ten Commandments. So like when did we actually get to see True Magic Mel fight? Never. So that's the next big issue. The fact that we have this plot device dragged into the narrative so Mel can get out of purgatory and beat the Demon King. We have this plot device and we introduce it and we never get to see it fight is crazy. We see every other variation of Meliodas get to fight. The only variation of Mel that we don't get to see fight is Baby Meliodas. That's the only one we don't get to see fight, and we don't need that one to fight. Or Child Meliodas. We don't need to see those versions fight. What every other version, whether it be base, beginning of series, assault mode, demon mark, any variation, we get to see levels to demon mark. Like we see it all. But we do not get to see True Magic fight. So that's the next hefty issue. Especially considering True Magic is just a really interesting form. He gets 2 extra floating flying magical limbs and the ability to erase people across dimensions. I think that's pretty darn neat. So, unfortunately, I can't do this within 4 nights because I don't know if it's back. There's been a lot of theorization that it's back, like hypothetically, oh, he's regained his magic over time before. Why not True Magic? The world's still in one piece. And I'm not talking about Oda. The world's still in one piece. So I think he doesn't have True Magic. Unless, once again, you were to go with my theory that the Demon King was just lying. A fibber. Like just a straight fibber, which I like to believe. Low-key, if I want True Magic back, I kind of got to have huff that copium. That the Demon King was just lying and that True Magic wouldn't actually destroy the world, then that's it. But if the world is still here, 16 years later, if he does have True Magic back, he's doing a very good job of suppressing it. Like, he's doing a very good job of suppressing it, or else the world will be gone. So I think we're just going to have to go back in time to before he threw it away, and let's just tweak that. Instead of throwing it away, he keeps it and he figures out some way to suppress it. And then he actually gets to use it. Because the thing about True Magic is that it provides not much, but what it does provide is good. Very, very good. I'm not sure how good those golden hands are, but we see the Demon King use those extra golden hands way better than Meliodas does. They seem to be at least somewhat relative to him. They were able to block out everybody who showed up until, post-Purgatory Bond pulled up and was like, hey, yo, it's Gucci Geekin. But regardless, those golden hands are great. Extra offense. And essentially telekinetic offense. He doesn't even have to, directly engage you. You are technically always getting jumped by Meliodas because you aren't fighting 4 limbs, you're fighting 6. And that's really, really good. Another thing that he just does not use on anybody, because notably the opponents he would use it on, he kind of doesn't want to execute. I don't know why he didn't want to execute his dad. When you really think, what would have happened if he did that? What would have happened if he actually straight up hit his father with True Magic? Because we know it works across dimensions. So he may have accidentally saved the plot right then and there. But regardless, well, not saved the plot. Merlin would have still got what she wanted and Cass would be released. But regardless of that, with that being the case, he never uses it. Ever. Ever. And he never uses its best ability, which is the I'll erase you across dimensions thing. In case you forget, Meliodas threw his magic. He didn't even use it properly, by the way. He threw his magic at the Demon King. How? I don't know. I think it's like throwing imagine you could rip out your liver and throw it at somebody and it did super effective damage. But the super effective damage was so super effective that didn't just hit the piece of the guy you were trying to hit in this dimension, but that other piece of him that happened to exist in the dimension that wasn't your main dimension was also hit and entirely wiped from his, that, bro, gone. Gone. Remember, the Demon King and his main body were in purgatory. The commandments and his not main body were in the mortal realm. Purgatory is an entirely separate time space from the main realm. But the Demon King still died, like still got wiped, even though the main body was untouched. And that was when Meliodas threw his magic at something. Like, threw his liver at something. Imagine if he actually hit people with it. Like, he actually properly hit a person with the real actual attack. The only thing we see him use the actual attack on is the curses. We've never actually seen bro use his magic in the way he's supposed to use his magic and hit things with it. So Meliodas has what seems to be like multi-time space existence erasure, because we know the Demon King had to be completely destroyed for Chaos to even be released. So Meliodas has an attack that can wipe people out across multiple time spaces by just hitting a piece of them in one time space that wipes them from existence, and he doesn't use it ever in combat. Why? Because of his mentality, and also for the fact that he throws the magic away. So we never get to see him use it. So first things first, he's going to have true magic. That will be his standard combat form. Like, obviously, we do not know due to how limited he stays in the form. We have no idea what his stamina like is in that form. But considering the man was able to fight for 60 years straight against his dad, and then 112 years straight against Bon, I think we're perfectly set to think that he could last in a battle within that form. Just fine. Just fine. So I think he can use the form perfectly fine with no issues, no drawbacks at all. And also, he can use the actual attack of the form instead of just throwing it at people. Don't throw your livers at people. We have no comparison. We do not come in with built-in time-space erasing projectile. We don't come with that, but Meliodas does. So Meliodas will be using that in battles. He's going to be chilling in that form. It's the highest form we've seen of him, higher than Demon Mark, higher than the levels of Demon Mark, higher than Assault Mode, higher than all that. So obviously, I'm going to need our boy to be chilling in that state if he wants to act optimally, and considering we are building him as optimally as possible, him being in the form and using the attack as much as possible is something he's going to be doing. That's how we're going to use him the most optimally, because the attack is just too good. Nothing else in Meliodas' kit existence erases you except for something that we'll get to in a little bit. But even then, like, it's physical existence erasure with the attack too, not just spiritual, which is what he has later. But that's the next big thing. He needs to keep true magic, and he needs to be able to use it properly. So that's building Meliodas the next step. That's the next major issue. That's how we fix it. Instead of throwing it away, we have him keep it, and we have him use it properly. And notably, we don't even know if he can go into Demon Mark on top of that form, because his eyes are normal in that form. So hypothetically, he could like stack Assault Mode on top of that. But regardless, that's another discussion for another time. Let's move on to the next big issue. Meliodas, he has soul stealing. Every demon has soul stealing. Of every level, like notably maybe not like the lowest of fodder, but I presume they do too. But like, I'm sorry, if a red demon can walk around a town and go aguriba, 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 and then everyone's souls within a town-wide radius is like, oh shoot, I'm feeling off, and then they come straight out the mouths of people and head straight towards the red demon. I think Meliodas knows the soul stealing. I think he does, and I think he can manipulate them just as fine as others do. If Derriere, a confirmed brute, can one tap and take your soul, I think Meliodas can. But Meliodas never does. You can go throughout the entire series, flashbacks across all the different variations. We have never, and I mean never, seen Meliodas actually use that ability. And it's arguably one of his most broken ones. Like, outside of the, I'll erase you across multiple different time spaces, outside of that one, the ability to just touch somebody and steal their soul when Meliodas is, in fact, for the most part, shock horror, a close combat fighter, is crazy. The fact that he literally has a spell or whatever that allows him to go aguriba, aguriba, aguriba and rip out souls, but he never uses it, is crazy. Especially considering, like, ripping out your soul is not an automatic GG in some deadly sense. Your soul contains you. It can still, like, move and bob and weave a little bit. Like, we see that with Bon. Bon's able to return to his body after his soul's ripped out. So just as, like, a temporary win con, a temporary default, the fact that Mel never uses it is crazy. And obviously, since he never uses it in character, if you're using Mel in a versus battle, whenever you bring it up, it's kind of just like, I mean, yeah, he can do it. He probably won't, though. Like, legitimately, he probably won't. So you'll never actually see him do it. I highly doubt we shall ever see Meliodas use this ability, unless he's, like, under the control of somebody else who's also shoving a controller up his butt to make him do it. But the ability to tap and or speak someone's soul out is bonkers. Bonkers. And we never see him do it. We never see him do it. So if we're building him optimally, problem number 3, we're fixing that. That's his go-to. Like, I'd say even more than True Magic. He's going to be starting in True Magic. He's going to be spamming those existence erasure attacks. But being real with you, if he's starting 5 feet away from somebody, the first thing he's going to try in our optimized Meliodas is he's going to try taking out their soul. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely characters who have soul manipulation resistance. Some characters just wouldn't be able to spit up their soul. And if you want to argue like weird cross-verse stuff where like souls operate in different ways and they wouldn't come out in the same little ball soul form that we get in Seven Deadly Sins, perfectly fine. But Meliodas is always going to try it first. That is the easiest win con he has. He doesn't even have to directly engage his opponent at all. He doesn't even have to fire a single attack. He just needs to whisper, up goody ba, up goody ba, up goody ba. And then suddenly his opponent is incapacitated. That works against most people. Like most people, very few people have soul resistance. Especially the people you usually match Meliodas up against definitely do not have soul resistance. So I think, hypothetically, him being able to just whip it out, that sounds wrong, but for him to be able to open round start with that is great. I think he's able to do that. And or if he's getting into close quarters combat with somebody, have him slap the soul out. Because once again, all it takes is a touch. It is not a fancy process. Like notably in some other series, like you need to like grab and physically tug the soul out in something like Naruto's case. Or like you have other cases in other series where like the soul, whenever the soul gets taken out, like the whole body gets destroyed or something like that. Or you have people who can manipulate the soul. No. Demons can just tap you and your soul leaves. Demons can speak a couple words and your soul leaves. We never see Mel do it. Never. And that's really, really bad considering it's one of his best abilities. Arguably, like I'd straight up say, top 3 abilities of Mel. Better than full counter, better than assault mode, better than demon, because it's just an automatic win con for the most part. Unless you are facing those rare people who can manipulate their soul or resist their soul being manipulated, the ability to rip out one's soul with a few words and or a touch is absolutely insane. And the fact that Mel doesn't use it is bonkers. And that leads into the second part. Mel can also existence erasure you that way, because if he consumes the soul, not only does he get all the magical abilities, powers, and strength that was contained, well, not strength, we don't know if it takes strength, but not only does he get all the magical power that was stored within that soul, not only does he get all their memories and stuff like that, no, he also wipes them from existence. Like, they don't reincarnate. Their soul doesn't go anywhere. Once a demon consumes your soul in the Seven Deadly Sins, it's gone. You can never be reincarnated again. Zavago is gone. We will never see an incarnation of the man again because his soul got ate. So that's another useful ability that Mel never uses. Once again, mentality-wise, but we fixed the mentality. The mentality's off the table. Mel's moving optimally here. And the ability to consume souls and prevent an opponent from ever going back to their body, that's fantastic. And note, there's just soul interaction. Like, people can, like, demons can just grab souls. Like, not just to eat them, like, just, they can just hold it in place. They can just grab the soul and hold it. They don't actually have to eat it. And notably, they seem to have some resistance or manipulation telepathically over souls. Like, the red demon we see use a soul stealing spell on a wide scale. The souls just hover above its palm. Like, it's gravitationally or telekinetically controlling it. So, Mel should be able to do that too. So he doesn't even have to eat the soul. Once again, this is not like an automatic death con. Getting your soul removed in Seven Deadly Sins does not automatically execute you. You can go back to the body. So the fact that we never see Mel use this at least once, at least just to calm somebody down or do something just to end a fight real quick, crazy. But now, since we're building an optimized Mel, he's going to do it. If you are fighting Mel and he happens to open up with this and you have no soul resistance, bada bing, bada boom, you automatically lose the fight because the soul is taken out of you. It'd be like that when it be like that, especially when it be like that. So that's number 3. Soul stealing is on the table and he's going to use it. Let's move on to the next one. Have you ever considered the fact that Mel has a sacred treasure? Like, have you ever actually thought about that? And now go back and think about how many times he's actually used it properly. Like think about what I mean. How many times has he actually used it properly? Go ahead. Think. Don't worry, he's never used it at least in my opinion, he's never used it as well as he could have. He never used Lostvayne as well as he could have. Because even if, let's go with the idea that the clones are legit just weaker in every sense, even though they are somehow able to react in time with the original to use full counter, something we know can be blitzed if you are slower, then you cannot use full counter appropriately. You see this Esterosa. If you have full counter and you are too slow to react to an attack, you cannot do it. And we've seen the clones react speed-wise, so I think at least physical stats are kept between the clones. It's only the magical ability that lowers. But regardless, even if they are weaker and slower by like any sort of magnitude, The fact that he's not jumping everybody and like realistically jumping everybody is crazy. Like he tried to do it a little bit against Gallon, but he didn't use it properly then. And let me tell you why. If your opponent is so much stronger than you, and you have an ability that allows you to multiply the damage and scale of your attacks pretty much ad infinitum. Like there's no stated limit to full counter. I know no limits fallacy and everything, but we see against the Demon King, he could just keep boop, 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 boop. Like I counted up to like, I believe 16 times. Like I think he full counters it like 16 times, if I remember correctly. At bare minimum, I think it stayed like 4 times. So he can multiply an attack up by 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4? 8 times 2 is 16. So he can make his weaker clone's attacks upwards of 16 times stronger against an opponent who is more powerful than him, like Gallon, but he doesn't do that. He just sends the clones to go die against Gallon. Why do that? Why not use the clones to amp your existing attacks? Can you imagine if Mel had clones and they were all in true magic and they just started full countering one of Mel's true magic attacks? It can be the original Mel's too. Don't get me wrong. It can be that Mel as well. Because remember, these things were able to full counter while they were just in assault mode. They were able to full counter the combined might of all the 7 deadly sins fused into one. The only people who were missing from that were like Merlin and Gother. Mainly because Gother just used Kill Switch. We don't know if that has like any sort of amp to it. But regardless, we know that they can full counter very large amounts of power. Power that definitely exceeds theirs, especially if you think the clones are weakened. So they can keep up with that kind of speed and keep full countering it again and again and again. So if Mel, the true variation of him, was to send out an attack, considering he has 2 pairs of arms, he does not need to fight you with the arms when he uses the attack. He can have one set of arms use the attack and the other set of arms throw hands with you. He sends off that attack, and then you start full countering. The attack gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more and more and more powerful. And then he smacks you in the face with it. What are you meant to do? What are you meant to do other than perish? That's the thing. We never see him do that. He never gets creative with Lostvayne. I guess that's the thing. Maybe he does use it optimally. Because I'll admit, using against the Albion, using against the Demon King, those were 2 good times, 2 good uses of Lostvayne. But I feel like Lostvayne never gets to reach its full potential or its full proper utilization. Fighting one Mel is hard enough. Fighting one true magic Mel is even harder. Now imagine fighting 6 of them. Even if I can erase you across multiple time spaces. No matter what. Like, even if those attacks are weaker than the original by, what? Upwards of a 16th of the original power. Not only can they just full counter to double that bad boy up, but I still don't think you want to get hit by that. Just being barraged with little pellets, it's still gonna hurt. It's still going to hurt. It's still not going to be a nice experience. Imagine you get bound by all of them sending all their arms at you at once. Imagine you get restrained by all of them using darkness at once. Imagine a trillion dark multiplied by, how many clones have we seen him use at once in canon? Well, if you go with Prisoner of the Sky beating canon, which I do think it is now, multiple people have said it. I think I was just in denial. So if Prisoner of the Sky is canon, then he can use 6 clones at once. Imagine 7 trillion darks. And imagine Mel starts to mix it up. Like, he throws in his full power attacks alongside the hypothetically weaker attacks. And now you're getting barraged by 7 trillion dark at the same time. You're getting hit by 7 existence erasure attacks at the same time. You have 7 different creatures all trying to rip out your soul at the same time. Like, legitimately, imagine every single attack of Meliodas, every single hacks of his multiplied by 7. 7. Shout. That's a lot. Like, that is a lot. That is crazy. But he can do that, and he never does. He always, the only time we've seen him use it somewhat in a really interesting way was when he sent his clone to go fight Fraudron. When he beat down Fraudron a little bit with his half-power clone, that was good. That was a well-intentioned utilization of the ability. That was good. But he never does it again. That's the only time we ever get to see him do something like that. And he only uses the clones to fight physically, realistically, up against Gallon. But after that works, I guess they just demoralize them because we never see him do that again either. Every single time he pulls out the clones from then on, it's just a full counter. Like, he full counters the Demon King's sword, the magic sword that the Demon King used, and he full counters the combined 7 deadly sins combo attack. That's it. Even in Prisoner of the Sky, he only does that. He, once again, just full counters using the clones, even though the clones are always useful, especially considering they don't actually take any physical stamina from him. they're just clones. They're clones that have no direct tie to the original. It's not like they hurt him or he gets hurt whenever they perish. It's not like they do extreme damage to him whenever he perishes. He can just keep dropping them and just be annoying. And once again, annoying yet deadly. All the clones have all of his abilities too. They should always be transformed. He should never come out with base clones or at all. They should always be in true magic. Because heck, even depends on how strong you think true magic is. But if you are fighting true magic Mel and then he drops 6 clones, I think we can all come to an agreement that true magic is likely probably something close to a 6 times multiplier. I think that'd be decent. I think you would have a decent amount of clones that are of decent power, even if they aren't the same level of power as the 2 main combatants. I think that could go bonkers. And of course, all the hacks and different abilities you could use with it, and or building up the power of attacks by spamming full counters on the attacks, or having other attacks of the opponent be negated by counter vanish and stuff like that. Like, there are so many ways that clones could be used to better effect that Mel just never does. So another way we're going to optimize Mel, along with his mentality, along with his uses of true magic, along with his uses of soul stealing, is we're also going to throw in the fact that he is always popping clones, and the clones are always in true magic, and they are always doing crazy things. Have half the clones be dedicated to Trillion Dark, have one clone dedicated to trying to rip out the soul, have another clone dedicated to just full countering other things so they're stronger. Just build it like that. Go a little bit bonkers like that. Because a big thing the clones just cause is chaos. Like, even if you can sense that some of them are weaker than others, or that one's or the original's the most powerful, you can always tell who the original is. It doesn't matter, because you're still being barraged by a bunch of different attacks, all of various levels of strength that you now need to deal with. And heavens forbid, Mel actually throws one of his own attacks in there, and you get caught lacking because you think you're about to get hit with a weaker existence ratio across multiple timelines attack, but no, you're actually getting hit with the full power one, or one that's been multiplied by 3 times over. Like, we never get to see Mel multiply the strength of his own attacks, except for the one time against the Demon King, and I feel like that's a waste. Clones are always super useful, especially within Mel's already existing kit, so the fact that he doesn't use them all too well feels like plot. Like, I'm not thinking too hard about it. I bet y'all can come up with even more fancy ways he could use the clones. Like, he could start hitting people with the clones if we're really talking about it like that. But, like, I know it's probably just plot, because it'd be too broken. Like, notably, a Meliodas that I'm building here, a purely optimized Meliodas, would be really, really hard to write for. Because very few characters would be able to beat a guy who can multiply his own full power attacks upwards of, like, who knows how many times. At bare minimum, 4 times. Imagine Mel's attacks full countered 4 times over, 16 times stronger than they already are, and they can erase you across 2 different time spaces. Like, it'd be a little bit hard to write for. Imagine a Meliodas who always went for the instant W, no matter what the situation was. He was always trying to rip out your soul, or he was always trying to existence erase you, or he was always trying to jump you. Like, legitimately, that would be a little hard to write. Imagine a Meliodas who is consistently negating the attacks of his opponents by consistently just counter vanishing them. That's another thing Mel just never does as often as he should. So many people use magical attacks. He should counter vanish all of those things. If he cannot full counter it back in time, counter vanish, counter vanish, counter vanish, counter vanish, counter vanish. Shoot, say that 5 times fast. I can't. But regardless, he never does that as often as he should, but he should be able to. There's no reason for him not to. Imagine every single attack ever thrown at Meliodas. He just needs to raise up one hand and go, bah, and then that thing's gone. Massive magical attacks vanished immediately. And sure, once again, upper limits and stuff. I don't believe in the no limits fallacy. But considering how powerful Meliodas is, the only people who should not have their attacks immediately vanish by a true magic Mel is either another true magic Mel and or chaos. Every other person should immediately be get boop, boop, boop. Like, their attack should never matter. On top of the fact that they're getting full counted back in their face. That's crazy. The only other parts of Meliodas' kits that I say go relatively unexplored is darkness. Like, he doesn't use darkness as good as he should. Though we get a glimpse of it. We get a glimpse of how well darkness can be used when he fights Estarossa and Zeldris. When he fights them and he just starts styling them solely with darkness, that is like the most impressive darkness utilization I think we ever see in the entire series. But like, imagine Mel just constructs arenas based around his darkness. He restrains his opponent with his darkness. He forms numerous weapons, forms even more arms and legs and constructs with his darkness. So you aren't just fighting Mel. You aren't just fighting Mel with his extra arms. You aren't just fighting Mel's clones with their extra arms. And you aren't just fighting Trillion Darks. No, but you're also fighting Mel with extra dark arms and dark legs and dark swords and dark spear and dark everything. Like, legitimately, he has what should be the highest amount of darkness possible in the series, except for chaos, obviously. So if that being the case, him being able to spam it should not be out of the question. He could probably just pull off Omnis Nebula. There's no offense to Zeldris, but his magic is not that unique. All he does is swirl darkness around. Meliodas should be able to do the exact same thing, if not better. You kind of see that with Trillion Dark, but Trillion Dark is still different than Omnis Nebula. Imagine you're getting Trillion Dark on the outside and being Omnis Nebula on the inside because Mel's just mimicking it. That's it. You could use darkness to so many different degrees, whether it be for shields, whether it be for offense, whether it be for defense. Like, straight up, this is going to sound crazy, Mel should just wear dark armor. Just flat out darkness armor. It's not like he needs to see you. He can sense you. So all he needs to do is wear darkness armor on top of his true magic form as he's barraging with darkness, as he's jumping with clones who are also wearing dark armor. And the thing is, if you really want to like supplement the clones and say, okay, they aren't that powerful, cover them in the original's darkness and have him manipulate them too. Like straight up defend them at least. Like just cover them in a good shield of darkness and suddenly they are nowhere near as vulnerable as they are before. You could go so crazy with Mel's kit, but Nakaba just doesn't. And notably, those are the main things I want to cover. I think Meliodas uses pretty much everything else in his kit pretty well. I'd say pretty well because like he spams full counter. We all know he spams full counter, so he uses that well. Revenge counter, you never necessarily want to use revenge counter, especially considering you have ways you could get revenge counters automatically without having to actually take the damage. But whenever he uses it pretty darn well. I'd say he doesn't utilize Hellblaze as much as he should. He should also be spamming that left and right. Like a flame that can negate regeneration of an immortal like Bond should always be a round starter. But he rarely ever uses that to its full potential. And once again, if it's ever too weak, he has clones that could just full counter it up so it's more than powerful enough. So he doesn't use that too often, but he should use that more as well. I'll give him that. But everything else, that's kind of his whole kit. He doesn't necessarily have too much. Mel's a complicated character. He's a very well-rounded character when you think about his hacks and his abilities, but he doesn't have too many. So that's how I would do it. Shift up his mentality, let him keep, use, and spam true magic. Let him spam some clones, and let him start tearing out some souls. And then you have a Meliodas that's perfectly optimized for a versus battle. At least, that's what I think. What do you guys think in the comment section down below? Do you think there are other parts of Meliodas' kit he should utilize more, or things that I forgot about his kit that he should even utilize at all? Do you think there are ways that Meliodas could be even further optimized for battle? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It makes a little notifications to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. It's over as low as $1 a month. You get exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Nago the Pencil, writing off.